Hello again, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first on the hazardous weather graphic, quite a few colors on here. Actually, we'll start in the south here. That's winter weather advisory for snow. That's expected to move in anywhere from 3 to 6 inches here over the southern panhandle, with the exception of Prince of Wales Island. They're not in the advisory area, but areas up to the North Petersburg and Wrangell on down to the southeast there. And that's for tonight, with the system moving in into early tomorrow. And back to the west here, we've got a blizzard warning out for the areas from Homer, Tanker Point, Homer Bluff specifically. And that's for later tonight into early tomorrow. That's until the system moves through and the snow ends, but that's for gusty winds that are expected as the Arctic air finally comes across southern Cook Inlet and temperatures fall, and should get 2 to 4 inches or 2 to 5 inches of snow. And that will be definitely blowing, creating whiteout conditions for about a 6-hour period. Again, beginning sometime overnight tonight and then ending, looks like, by 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. And then out here, this is a blizzard watch area, and that's along the coast, not really to the east here, but mostly along the coast, including Nunivak Island, Yukon Delta coast, and say from Cape Newenham or Togiak. That's about as far east as it extends, actually. But that's for a blizzard. That's a blizzard watch, and that's out for tomorrow night and into Sunday morning. Big storm expected to move into the Bering Sea with the cold air and strong winds arriving along the coast will create whiteout conditions. And the winter weather advisory here for the greater Sleepmute area, Aniak, that ends at 9 p.m. this evening as the snow associated with the trough here finally shifts eastward. May pick up another inch or so during that time. And then out here to the west, Pribilof Islands under a blizzard warning for late tomorrow as that storm moves in. Look for blizzard conditions after the break you had today with the light winds and some clearing that occurred, which allowed the temperature to drop to 7 degrees above zero at St. Paul earlier today. Not a record. That came within a few degrees of the record low that was set in 1975, which I think was 2 or 3 degrees, maybe 4. Anyway, and then here over the interior, this winter weather advisory is out until roughly about noon Saturday here, and you could see 3 to 5 inches of snow as well, but most of that overnight. Actually, the southern portion of the system moving faster than this northern area, so you stay in the winter weather advisory status there for the Kobuk Valley down in towards Galena and those areas. And out to the west, high wind watch here, Adak Atka, Central Aleutians back to the Rad Islands, and that watch is until begins or extends through tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, possibly seeing winds gusting 80 miles an hour, but more likely western Aleutians are under the influence of a high wind warning, Shimian at 2, looking for winds of 55, gusts 80, 85 miles an hour out there. And again, that's until 9 a.m. Saturday as well. Okay, on to the satellite imagery. Today had a pretty active front moving through the area there. That brought 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts to Shimia before it moved through, and weakening here as it pushes eastward, mostly just high clouds spreading into Fox Islands there, and higher clouds now approaching the Pribilof Islands. Otherwise, not so strong on the winds, but it is pulling enough warm air here for the central Aleutians that snow changed to rain at Adak, seeing gusts about 30 to 40 miles an hour there. And winds, 10 slow center here to the south, you can see just coming onto the map on the last couple of frames there. That's already bringing the winds back up out of the east at Shimia. After dropping down a little bit there, they're already gusting back up toward 50 miles an hour and continue to increase dramatically with hurricane force wind warnings out for the western Aleutians later tonight and tomorrow. Cold air over the northern Bering Sea all the way down here to the Alaska Peninsula, and actually beyond. That's all shifting eastward here. We've got a system moving northward in advance of that Arctic front, or along the Arctic front there. Showers ended at Kodiak today, but that easterly wind keeping it warm, mild over the southern Cook Inlet area. Iliamna, 36 degrees, rain in Soldovia, temperatures in the 30s there, but once that lifts northward, that cold air will rush on in and could bring some whiteout conditions again to the Homer Bluff area later tonight and tomorrow, with several inches of snow forecast for south central Alaska as that pulls northeastward during the day. It should move through pretty fast, and you can see it right here, that spreading some showers, rain beginning to increase here along the North Gulf Coast, nothing too terribly heavy at this point. And the system here spreading mostly clouds, kind of the rain tapering off from what you had earlier today over the Panhandle. But still, the heaviest rain has yet to arrive over the southern areas. And you can see this area moisture shifting off, and you had a little bit of a break there, but definitely thick cirrus spreading over much of the southern Panhandle. A few showers around Yakutat, but nothing too heavy at all, and basically fair over the eastern interior. On the chart, here's that trough that's slowly moving east. We've got this low tracking northward into southern Cook Inlet. Again, that easterly flow keeping the warmer air in over southern Cook Inlet presently, but as that pulls northeastward, the very cold air back to the west and northwest will be surging eastward as the surface high gets nudged east ahead of the big storm out to the west. And again, some rainfall trying to get across Dixon Entrance here to the southern Panhandle. Otherwise, that fog symbol, that's a dense fog symbol. That was for Petersburg. They had a quarter-mile visibility in dense fog just about all afternoon. A few scattered showers in North Gulf Coast. Again, not bad over the eastern interior. Light winds and some clearing. Then the tight gradient here with this front and the low pressure area to the southwest. 953 millibars there, and that's going to track northward, as you'll see for tonight. 943 continues to deepen, so we got the high wind warnings out for the eastern Aleutians, high wind watches out for Adak and Atka back to the Rat Islands, and wind, rain, and temperatures will be on the increase here, so whatever starts as snow will switch back over to rain eventually, probably by late tonight, and that'll begin to bear down on the Pribilof Islands, but not tonight. Your warning for the blizzards out for tomorrow. This area pulls northeastward. That low actually not pulling up the inlet, but off the coast there to the south of the Kenai Peninsula. Cold air will surge into south central Alaska, and snow even into Prince William Sound. Back up to the north and northwest to the western Arctic coast, stays fair in the east. And this low tracking across the southern Panhandle. Again, snow advisory, especially with any elevation at all here over the southern areas. And scattered rain and snow showers back to the north. And for tomorrow afternoon, this low hangs in Prince William Sound due to the cold air coming down from the northwest there, but look for clearing across Kodiak, giving way to high clouds. Definitely a big increase in the clouds tomorrow afternoon for Kodiak Island, but starting out pretty good. Break here across the interior, cold temperatures, light winds, and clearing. In this area, snow shifting slowly eastward, taking longer to end up the Susitna Valley and into the mid-interior, but areas light snow all the way back to the North Slope Arctic coast. And now just showers here over the Panhandle, another batch off the coast. That'll be actually weakening as it pushes in tomorrow night. And new low center pulls up toward Nikolsky. So you're going to have a break in the winds here for the Adak-Atka area with the stronger low back out to the west. Looks like this will track northward. Something like that will track due north. This one will drop to the southeast. A new low will form and come up toward Kodiak, so look for the rain to increase along the coast with warmer temperatures and increasing winds southern Alaska. Lows tonight, 20 south, below zero in the north, and definitely below zero in the west. Highs for tomorrow, below zero west of the Alaska Range and near zero just to the north. Lows or highs or Sunday morning lows in the teens south central Alaska, followed by highs in the mid to upper 20s, warming over Kodiak.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
On the first line weather graphic here, a lot of IFR with that strong front associated with a big storm out over the western Aleutians there, that slipping on into the Fox Islands, and improving behind the front there, Adak and Atka. VFR, eastern northern Bering Sea. IFR along this area here with the trough that's swinging northeastward. So some IFR, Kenai Peninsula, northern Cook Inlet, right on up to the western Beaufort Sea coast and wrapping back down across Chukchi Sea there into the northern Seward Peninsula. And some VFR off to the east of that feature. And IFR, central, southern, southeast coast for the afternoon, shaping up like this. Not too bad here over the panhandle. Still some marginal VFR hanging on to the southern areas, but VFR to the north. And this band of moisture slipping off to the northeast slowly, so improving over Cook Inlet in the afternoon. Good VFR back here to the west, Kodiak Island. Widespread IFR up Kobuk, Koyukuk Valley, out toward Noatak Valley, northward to the Arctic coast, North Slope Brooks Range. And this band IFR moves into the Pribilofs, continues over the Fox Islands, slipping on up into the Alaska Peninsula, and then continued VFR, looks like for the afternoon, central Aleutians, back to IFR out west. And that holds out there through Sunday. Marginal VFR now for Adak and Atka. IFR pretty widespread here from, roughly on Alaska on up towards Kodiak Island, or call False Pass up to Kodiak Island, becoming marginal VFR for the Alaska area. IFR southwest coast, but south of St. Lawrence Island here. VFR central interior-ish and down into Cook Inlet. Marginal VFR along the coast up into the Talkeetnas, maybe the Alaska Range. IFR just grazing the western Arctic coast, and some IFR, Lynn Canal, and otherwise looks not too bad here for the western part of the panhandle. And then by the afternoon, marginal VFR in the east there over toward the border, and IFR North Gulf Coast northward here, western Alaska Range, a swath here from the northwest interior down across St. Lawrence Island, and a patch there for the central Aleutians. Anaktuvuk, marginal VFR becoming IFR early afternoon. Starting out VFR for Adigan though, with a little farther to the east in the dry air, but becoming IFR throughout the afternoon. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR becoming VFR. Improving for Rainy, starting out IFR though, but becoming VFR in the afternoon. And for Windy, IFR becoming marginal, a little slower to improve there. Isabel looks like it'll be marginal throughout the day. Mintasta, VFR. Tanita, marginal VFR becoming IFR. Probably not improving there until maybe late, tomorrow evening or so, when that moisture finally pulls off. And Portage, IFR. And Chilkoot and White, VFR. For the freezing levels here at the surface, northern panhandle up along the North Gulf Coast, Kodiak Island, but south of the Alaska Peninsula, cutting up across on Alaska Island, and very close to St. George Island. Got 2,000 feet here. Really not a lot of warm air aloft with that big storm out to the west there, but 2,000 feet slipping northward to Atka Island, 2,000 feet here near Stewart down to the Queen Charlotte's icing. Swath of isolated moderate here, southern panhandle up along and off the coast of the North Gulf Coast, and with that system pushing northeastward, be some areas of icing. That'll extend all the way up to the Arctic coast, and then some possible heavier, considerable moderate there, in terrain enhanced type icing along the Alaska Peninsula. Otherwise, isolated moderate here. Pretty wide area with that system, and again, that comes across the central Bering Sea, wrapping back in around the western Aleutians. Jet stream, cold upper low here over the Chukchi Sea, and pretty 50, 70 knot winds around that. And then the southern one over the western Aleutians, very strong jet coming out of Asia, 210 knots, about 150 southwesterlies. Ridging here, 120 knots over the top, and then this northwest jet, this trough slowly pulling across the panhandle and keeping the stronger jet down to the south and to the west. 9,000 feet, really strong winds out here over the Aleutians, 50 to 70 knots, and up to 65 knots there with a low over the western Aleutians, the main low center, 20 to maybe 40 knots over the southern panhandle. Interior, light in the east, 25 to 30 knots in the west with that low near the, well, actually at this level, 3,000 feet near Kivalina, but lighter winds at this elevation for them, and then 25 to 30 over the southern panhandle. Strong winds, Aleutians. Strongest will be with that western storm and possible severe turbulence below 4,000 feet with that, with moderate chop all the way into the Alaska Peninsula.
We have cleaned over 1,500 miles of shoreline now.
Basically, it comes down to just human muscle. I mean, we use chainsaws and knives.
We find stuff from like Russia and China and Korea, Vietnam, Malaysia. It really doesn't matter where it comes from. We all just have to clean it out.
Our goal right now in the next 10 or 11 days before the end of this year is just to see how much we can collect before we get to remove it.
What you see on the beach is a fraction of what's out there. You can pretty much break it down into 3 or 4 things. Water bottles, a lot of water bottles, styrofoam, fishing nets, fishing buoys. And that's 99% of what you find on the beach. Basically just go along with chainsaws and muscle and get the garbage, put it in sacks, and then from there we haul it up above the log jam so it's out of any heavy surf or winter storms if it's going to stay there for the year, and put it in super sacks. So yeah, we just progressively work down the coast, just day in and day out.
We have like daily goals for ourselves that, like, if we're working at a pretty good rate, we like to keep on pace with about, like, I don't know, about 20 to 25 super sacks a day. So this is pile 102, and in this pile right now we have 2 super sacks and 1 set of buoys. June 23rd here, this is what we've done today. We're up to 25 super sacks on the day, and I think for now we'll call it and just keep cleaning until tomorrow.
My name is Hannah, and I represent a organization in Japan called Japan Environmental Action Network. With over 20 people working together to clean up the beach, this is amazing. Like, we all need to work together to, clean up the beach as much as possible. So like every single time I go back to Japan, I talk to the fishermen, and the fishermen's like, it's a joke, but they're like, if you find any buoy with my logo, you gotta bring it back, and it's like, always looking out for that stuff.
The crew's awesome. I mean, we're all skiers or snowboarders, and we're all friends. I mean, we're all good friends. My dad started it. He's the man behind the desk. He makes the ball roll for sure. He works hard. He doesn't give up easy, which is good.
This stuff is uplifted quite a ways during the earthquake. Well, I think my bag's about full already. Yeah. I'm gonna take a quick look back in here, see what else is back here. The thing about marine debris is it's kind of a hidden problem. Unless you're out there, especially on these remote beaches that are so heavily impacted, people don't see it. I remember probably a good 20 years ago, I was out on the outside of Montague Island, flew out there, and I was just utterly astounded by all the garbage out there. You walk out there and you wade through this stuff and you go, this isn't right, this shouldn't happen.
I think a lot of it's just awareness. I mean, I've been boating out here for a long time, and I wasn't even aware of how extensive the marine debris problem is out here, but it's a consumer world out there for sure. I mean, I don't know where people's values are, I guess, but mine is you got to kind of have a little bit of respect for the environment, and considering we live in it, especially in Alaska. I mean, a lot of people like the outdoors and like to be part of the outdoors. That's why they live here, and it's they don't necessarily want to see it trashed.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis. Still advancing here to the southwest, but change coming up in the weather pattern that may track a low northward across eastern Bering here over the next 3 to 5 days. And if that happens, then it'll actually be a retreat with a southerly wind associated with it. So that could be a pretty significant change coming up. Moving on to coastal water forecast for tomorrow. West winds, gale force in some cases here on the south coast, 35 knots, seas 14 feet. Lighter as you head north, 20 knots on the extreme north coast, 8-foot seas. Light winds for Lynn Canal. Northwest 20 for Stevens Passage. West 25, 7-foot seas, Clarence Strait. And those are south at 10. All through the inside waters for Sunday with seas pretty slight at 2 feet. Westerlies 20 on the south coast. 15 to 20 from the north, or from the south on the north coast, with seas 11 to 13 feet. And for Prince William Sound, westerlies 20 knots, seas 3 feet. Got gales here, strongest on the western North Gulf Coast at 40 knots out of the west, also for the Barren Islands. Storm warnings tomorrow, Kamishak Bay, west winds 50 knots. Those will probably be dropping off in the afternoon. And Southern Cook Inlet, gales west 35 knots, but north of the Forelands just southwest of 15. And then those all swing around to the northeast. We've got southeast 35 here for the Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, but northeast 20 to 25 for Cook Inlet, southeast 30 knots for the North Gulf Coast, 25 knots for Prince William Sound, seas at about 4 feet. Kodiak Island, west winds 35 knots tomorrow, seas 13 feet, only 8 feet though in Shelikof Strait. And Sitkinak to Castle Cape, west 25, seas 8 feet. These probably becoming lighter in the afternoon. East 25, Bristol Bay tomorrow. Gale force winds from the east-southeast for the Alaska Peninsula with seas anywhere from 8 to as high as 17 feet. And then for Sunday, south to southeast 30 knots here for the peninsula with seas 18 to 23 feet, highest on the Pacific side. And Bristol Bay southeast at 30 with seas at 8 feet. Gale force winds here from Castle Cape to Sitkinak, right up the east side of Kodiak Island. South-southeasterlies 19 to 22 foot seas. Southeast 30 for Shelikof Strait with 9-foot seas. And good gales here into the Fox Islands tomorrow. South to southeast 40 knots, seas 10 to 19 feet. Gale warnings out for the Adak-Atka area. Could be a period of lighter wind in there, depending on where that low tracks up. But then at some point in the day, look for gale force winds to continue. And hurricane force wind warnings tonight will fall back to about 60 knots tomorrow with 37-foot seas, south 55 knots west of Adak. And then lighter winds coming into the area on Sunday. Still gales, northeasterlies way out west, and then small craft advisories into the central Aleutians due to those seas at 20 to 23 feet. And then winds in the 20 to 25 knot range here for the eastern Aleutians from the south-southwest, with seas running 20 to 25 feet. For the west coast, south of Nunivak Island, gale force easterlies 35 knots, 7-foot seas, 45 knots out of the east for the Pribilof Islands, with seas coming up to 14 feet, northeast 40 there for St. Matthew Island, and just 20 knots for St. Lawrence Island. And for Sunday, those come up considerably there, 40 knots out of the northeast and southeast 40, north of Nunivak Island, gales from the south of the island, and southwest 30 for the Pribilofs, but St. Matthew Island, northeast 45 knots, 27-foot seas. Central eastern Beaufort Sea coast, east-northeast, light 10 knots, 15 knots on the west side, 20 knots Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, and then small or brisk wind advisories, 25-knot winds for the Chukchi Sea to the Bering Strait. And then the next day, stronger, north 30 knots in this area, 20 knots there for the Western Cape, southwest 15, much of the Beaufort Sea coast, west 15 on the far eastern end. Tonight, blizzard warning out for the area from Homer to Anchor Point here, especially the Bluff, as cold air finally pushes into actually south central Alaska with whiteout conditions, mostly in that area. But as that pushes through, look for several inches of snow to come across southern Alaska Anchorage, and then this band back to the northwest, and then the storm, big storm out over the Bering, or actually the Aleutians and the Bering Sea with that tight gradient in advance of that front, and low center over the northwest Bering and north central. Next system, warmer and windier, definitely coming up across Kodiak and eventually into south central Alaska with a Chinook wind for the Anchorage area, and not so bad over the Panhandle.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.